if you give him too much respect, he'll run you over. And if you don't give enough respect, he'll run you over. So he's in a tough spot dealing with him. He's got to be out there. He's got to be on his P's and Q's early.
Welcome into the big fight breakdown here on ProBox TV. Download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind in your boxing news. Well, the big fight is on us here at ProBox TV in Ireland, November 1st. Our main event, Padraig McCrory versus the very, very heavy-handed Leonard Carrillo. 17 wins, 16 knockouts. We were able to sit down and talk with McCrory, not just about the fight, but his homecoming in Belfast. This is what he had to say.
Yes. So Ireland and Belfast, for me, is the best place in the world. And to come back like to Belfast after my first defeat, and to see that people still want to come out and support me and get behind me, it's great to see. And they always bring the noise. It's a great venue at the SSC, and fight night's going to be something special.
Patrick, what's up, man? In Ireland, what do you go by? I know there's a lot of nicknames in Ireland. So what do you go by, Paddy? Or you go by Patrick?
So it's Paddy. So
Paddy. Okay, Paddy.
Paddy,
Okay, I got you.
yeah.
So I want to be able to call you by what you're comfortable with. Yeah.
Close to Paulie. Almost the same.
Yeah, close to Paulie. Right? Paddy and Paulie. All right.
Paddy, yeah.
All right. So Paddy, talk to us. You know, you just had your most high-profile fight, right? Because obviously, after the fight, Berlanga wound up getting the Canelo fight. You know, now you've sort of been in with one of these big players in the weight class. You had a big win, I believe, in Germany not long ago as well. What's the outlook going forward here? Obviously, you already had this big following in Belfast before, but now coming back from a high-profile situation where people can sort of, know they've seen you not just from being from Belfast, but also in all other parts of the world, having fought in Edgar Berlanga. What do you take out of that fight, and how do you view the rest of your career going forward? Because obviously you've got to make moves. You're at this point in your mid-30s.
Yeah, listen, I'm 36 now, so I gotta kind of plan a route back to the top, and unfortunately, the Berlanga fight didn't go my way, and I think the experience was great, and I think I'll learn from the experience, but the performance on the night just wasn't good enough, and I don't think I showed up, and they got tactics right. But to get the exposure of the big fight against Berlanga, who has a great following and has been on the fight.
What do you take from that fight, though, Paddy?
Yeah, listen, I kind of took, like most of all, I think it's the experience. I don't think I was, at my age, I probably should have been ready, but in fight week, there was like a lot of hype and a lot of things that I wasn't used to, and things that I don't usually see, and media obligations that I'm not used to, like also. So just a bit of everything, and from the fight, I think I need to be better if I want to get back to that level. But I truly believe, and I know in the gym, like what I can do, and it's the level that I think I can fight at.
Yeah, Buddy, just to piggyback off of that, you said you fought at home 16 times. I was a fighter, fought at home quite a bit, but things are different now. You've had a different kind of exposure, not only to the media side of it, like you said, the media obligations, but also just to the world stage. You're gonna have a lot more eyes on you. You're on a big platform here with ProBox TV. Does it feel different, even though you're going home where you feel comfortable, but there's a different kind of weight on your shoulders now? Do you feel that, or how is that coming together for you?
Yeah, listen, it's ProBox first time coming like the UK, I think. So it's a pleasure to be part of that. And definitely so when you're carrying the event, you always want the event to do well. And you feel that extra pressure in case it doesn't. But thankfully, last August, I was main event back in Belfast in like an open air event against Steve Woodall in a good fight. So I do have that experience. And as I've said, I fought here 16 times. So I feel like I have the experience of the home crowd and what I need to bring to the table.
Leonard Carrillo, your opponent, 17 wins, 16 knockouts. He has very, very heavy hands. Tactically, how are you approaching this fight?
Yeah, listen, he's a southpaw. He has 16 knockouts. He fought at a really good level, like as an amateur. Technically, I boxed a lot of amateurs, or sorry, loads of southpaws back in the amateurs, and a couple as a pro. So I feel like I can adopt and need to do. I can adopt and do what I need to do like, to get the win. But as you say, he has 16 knockouts, and I'm gonna need to be very switched on. He probably sees me as the opportunity to get a big fight, and I can't let that happen. For me, this is a must-win fight.
You mentioned that obviously you can't be somebody that you overlook. A guy with 16 knockouts and 17 wins can't be overlooked. But you just come off of the fight with a pretty good puncher in Berlanga as well. So there is some confidence going forward that you've been in with the best in the world and maybe have that experience. What I want to say basically, Paddy, is at this age, sometimes our mindsets change. Like you're at 26 years old, boxing is, for example, in my career, was still my passion. At 36 years old, it was a way that I was making money. It wasn't a passion anymore. You are at a position where, because of your age, you've got to have a very busy schedule. You got to, I don't want to look past Carrillo, but you got to figure, you got to beat Carrillo and then get back in quickly and then get back in quickly again if you're going to build towards something. What importance has boxing got in your life right now as opposed to, maybe in your 20s? Does the passion and enthusiasm still match up? Do you have other things going on in your life? How do you view boxing at this point?
Yeah, listen, I've never been a full-time boxer, so I don't rely on boxing. I have my own small business. I'm a personal trainer, and it's successful, so I don't rely on boxing. And my pro career is only 6.5 years old. So I still feel like I'm learning on the job. I'm only 19 fights in, and during them 6.5 years, there's been 2 years where nothing really happened because of COVID. So I still have that desire to test myself against the best in the world, and I feel like I didn't do that in February against Berlanga, and the hunger runs deep for me to get back to that level and show what I can do against the best guys in the division.
Paddy, I'm glad you mentioned that because all of a sudden it puts things more into perspective. So you've been a 6-year pro. So you're 36, but only a 6-year pro. And of course, 2 of those years was wasted on COVID. So in 4 years to reach a level of an Edgar Berlanga, who then fought Canelo, is a pretty good pace, So it gives a different perspective of who Paddy McCrory is.
Yeah, Paul, yeah. You missed the conversation me and Paddy had prior to going on air. We were speaking about that. So you're a young 36, Paddy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, listen, there's really low mileage on me. I didn't have a long amateur career there. I didn't travel. Well, I traveled the world, but I didn't.
But it's also, but Paddy, it's also not just that you're a young 36. To reach from turning pro to a championship level opponent in 4 years, because we're gonna probably have to subtract 2 years because COVID, everybody was stopped. That's a good pace, bro. That's the pace of a solid amateur prospect. You didn't have the amateur career behind you.
Yeah, listen, I took risks fairly early on in my career. In my 5th fight, I boxed a guy who was 3-0, who beat me as an amateur. In my 9th fight, I boxed Steve Collins Jr., who is son of Steve Collins,
was a legend over there.
Champion. And then from about 11 fights on, 12 fights on, I've been taking risk. I took a risk and moved up to light heavyweight, the fight for the IBO world title, and I've been rolling the dice, and it's paid off, and I got the Berlanga fight, and unfortunately it didn't go my way, as I've said, but I moved at a good pace.
All right, Paddy, so I'm just listening to everything you're saying, right? So you're quote unquote a young 36. You've moved pretty quick as a pro. You have another job. You have a successful business that you work. What is the ultimate goal? Where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? How long do you plan on fighting for, and where do you ultimately see yourself in those coming years?
Yeah, listen, I've always been the type of the guy to take it fight by fight and reevaluate after every fight. But I'm at an age now where I need to have a plan in place. I have a 3-fight plan, and where I want to be at the end of of them 3 fights is to be challenging for, or to be in a mandatory position to challenge for a world title. Who knows what's going to happen with Canelo? He can move up in weight and challenge Bivol or Beterbiev. And the belts could get spread out. So my aim is to get back into the world rankings, and to force a position where I can get a big opportunity.
When you look at someone who had a homecoming that didn't work out, Subaru Matias, for example, that springs to mind in Puerto Rico, big homecoming, high-fiving everybody. Liam Powell upset him that night because he was a little more focused. How do you enjoy being in front of the hometown crowd, loving being there, but stay focused on the opponent and realize it's just business? How do you balance that?
Yeah, it's difficult because so as you're walking into the ring, I feel like I look and see every person like that I know, and to take that emotion away from knowing that you have to get in and fight a guy who's coming here to change his life and win. It can be difficult, but I've done it back in Belfast, as we say, 16 times, and I'm used to like removing the emotion of that. So it's become a second nature to me now.
Well, Padraig McCrory, of course, fighting for us November 1st, Belfast, Ireland. Thank you so much for your time, buddy. Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much. Cheers. All the best.
Well, you look at the tail of the tape. What stands out? 35 against 36. Not exactly the old man at 36 in this fight. 18-1 versus 17-5. But the knockout power definitely going with Carrillo in this fight. 175 pounds, light heavyweight division going down November 1st. Now, joined in studio by the champ, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi joining us via Zoom. Both had a chance to talk to McCrory. Chris, the things that make this fight interesting are kind of the contradictions. As you said, he's 36, but he's a young 36. He's coming home, but coming off a big fight. But, you know, boxing isn't necessarily his full-time occupation, so he may have a lot left in the tank. What are your thoughts on all that coming together?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the story of this fight. Is what did he learn in that fight with Berlanga, when he got the fly a little too close to the sun, so to speak. But, a lot of times that makes you a better fighter. And he's coming back home somewhere where he is comfortable, but he's fighting a dangerous guy. And, Carrillo is one of those guys where if you give him too much respect, he'll run you over. And if you don't give enough respect, he'll run you over. So he's in a tough spot dealing with him. He's got to be out there. He's got to be on his P's and Q's early. The good thing is he has experience with a big puncher that he fought in his last fight against Edgar Berlanga. So the power shouldn't be that surprising per se, but he still needs to be very, very sharp early on and not get caught up in this maybe newfound fame around him. He's fighting at home, but people are probably treating him a little differently now. They've seen him on TV now. It's a little bigger. He fought in the States. It's a big deal. So I'm curious to see how he deals with this newfound pressure.
Talk a little bit about that fame, Paulie. I was in Ireland calling a fight a few months ago, and I was at this museum that had a bunch of Irish sports stars on the wall. I didn't know one of those guys as an American. They were not huge stars. So the idea that he's going to have some fame at 168 here, he's a superstar in Ireland. Can that be difficult to deal with, Paulie?
You know what? Only if he's satisfied with that. There comes a sort of a weakness to being satisfied with what you've accomplished. When he said he doesn't really have to rely on boxing, he's got a business. Okay, so he doesn't have to be starving for success in boxing because he's got a business and he's financially okay. So having reached a certain level in the Berlanga fight, my curiosity is this, that I'm going to be looking for in this fight against Carrillo, is him having reached a level of Berlanga, and then Berlanga going to fight Canelo. Okay, and he came up short against Berlanga, he got stopped. Is he saying, okay, I went as far as I could go, let me see how many more paydays, a couple of extra paydays I can grab. Again, he's got a good business, but hey, he can still nip a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. Or is he hungry to go back to that place where he was during the Berlanga fight, which is against a world-class opponent that you'll be very, very uncomfortable, and you have to answer some questions about yourself if you want to reach that star level of fame, so to speak, and that star level in the sport in terms of accomplishing things. I think this fight is going to give us a lot of answers because he's been there already, and he came up short. But it's not, and that's not going to tell you a lot in and of itself. But when you're 35, is it going to be something that you're going to be willing to push yourself for again? Or are you saying, I'm 35, I'll do what I can. And I've seen what I've seen and where I'm gonna go. The only reason I'm asking these questions is because he's 35. If he was 25, I'd say, hey, you know what, bro? He's still got a lot in front of him. He can still go for it, and he probably will keep going for it, and he'll still stay hungry because it's not the worst loss to take against an Edgar Berlanga if it's the only loss in your career and you've had some good wins. But because he's 35 now, he's just coming back home. You're coming back home to try to set yourself up for a world-class level. Are you going to go there, or are you already satisfied? Because that's what being 35 is. It's not being 25, and those are the questions that come up.
Champ, I think he's actually 36.
Yeah, 36. What? Carrillo's 35. He's 36. He's the older man in that conversation. So talk about it tactically.
Statement stance.
Yeah, totally. Same ballpark. Yeah. When you look at it, Chris, tactically dealing with a big puncher like Carrillo, who isn't world-class in his approach, but a powerful guy. What do you want to see early in that fight that make you think that not only did he not get beat by the opponent, he didn't get beat by the moment? Because he talked about Berlanga. He said, I wasn't quite ready for that moment here. Well, this is a big homecoming. He has to overcome the moment. What round do you think, okay, I feel like he's got the moment in check?
Well, I think he needs a guy like Carrillo. You got to push back. You don't want the puncher to get momentum and start rolling and land those big shots. So I'd like to see him get aggressive, get on that jab. He does have a really nice right hand, does McCrory. So if he can get on that jab early, try and push the puncher back and start dropping right hands on him, get that respect early. I'd like to see that right away. And I think that's his best chance in this fight, to come out with taking as little damage as possible. And like I said, a lot of times when you have those step-up fights the way that he had that Berlanga fight, you learn a lot from that moment and become a better fighter. So I want to see if he took that experience and made himself a better fighter, or, to what the champ was saying, did he kind of reach the mountain and be like, nah, I'm good? Yep. So we're going to know that pretty early on in this fight.
Well, I got to ask you, Paulie, you always say, and it's true, ProBox TV, if you give us a great performance, we'll have you back. Win or lose, if you're entertaining, we're going to see you again. When it comes to Robert Davies Jr., this was a guy who had a really fun fight, a very tough fight against Sergey Lipinets that was on our air, ProBox TV. Well, he's on this card in Ireland in the co-main event against Javier Fortuna, a guy who was at the top at one point, very slick boxer in his prime. What do you think about what could be a great co-main event?
You know what? It's funny because Davies sort of applies his trade-off ex-world champions, right? He's a little faded ex-world champions. Gave us a really great fight with Lipinets, as you said. It was a great back-and-forth battle. With Fortuna, it's sort of the same situation. I'm wondering, though, if Fortuna is as hungry as Lipinets still kind of was. Lipinets, even though he was at older age that I was discussing about McCrory, was willing to go to those uncomfortable places still, even at his older age, still was willing to be rocked and come back and keep battling and fighting and going to war. You don't typically... It's not always, I don't want to say typically, because, I think my co-host Chris Algieri, even at an older age, was still fighting very hard. Had a much more desire than I did at a later point in my career. So can't say it's typical, but it's in some cases for sure. I wonder where Fortuna is at, because I've seen some performances from Fortuna where it's like sometimes he looks like he sort of wants out already, in the middle of the performance. Again, where that championship mindset has sort of left him, and he's a bit of in an opponent mindset. Still dangerous. He's still physically dangerous. He still has a dangerous left hand. This is not his ideal weight class. His best weights were a little bit lower. Does he have any of that, weird movement that he used to have? He was a bit of an awkward southpaw in his best days. There's things here that could be tricky against Davies. It's definitely a different style inside the ring than Lipinets was. You physically, from a physical standpoint, it's a totally different style. But does he have the dig down at this age that Lipinets still had at the older age? Does he still have that championship mindset at the older age that Lipinets still had against Davies? Davies, we already know, comes to fight, man. If Fortuna comes to fight, we got a really cool, tricky, and could be an action fight. If Fortuna is sort of that faded mindset as much as he's faded physically, then this fight maybe it's not so good, and Davies wins it more easily than we might anticipate.
I called this fight against Robert Easter Jr., if you remember that one. A tall, rangy guy, reminded a lot of people of Tommy Hearns. His style was tricky. It gave Robert Easter Jr. some trouble. It was a split decision loss for Fortuna, but Dominican Republic fighter, southpaw, lost to Ryan Garcia, Jojo Diaz. He's faced some of the best. Chris, how does he make that experience a factor? If he still has a desire, but to stay out of the war, how does he do that?
Well, I'll tell you right now, not only is he an ex-champ, he's a faded ex-champ. And Champ, to your point, I've seen him bail out of fights years ago. So this is nothing new. And another reason, Champ, why this is a very different fight than fighter than Sergey Lipinets. Lipinets went down in weight.
at an advanced age. Fortuna's fighting 2 weight classes up from where he was his best. So entirely different guy. Now, what I can see Javier Fortuna doing in this fight, if he has success early, he's tricky enough to be like, hey, I can win this fight and find a way to win the fight. But if Davies jumps on him early and doesn't give him anything to breathe, I think this fight ends pretty easily in favor of Davies. But that's not to talk down on the ability, the trickiness, everything that we spoke about for Fortuna. But I just don't know if his mindset is there at this stage of his career. 2 fights ago he fought Ryan Garcia. He barely showed up. He went down a bunch of times. Granted, Ryan's a big puncher. But he was fighting at 140. I don't think he made weight that night. He's had 1 win since then against nondescript opposition. So we got to see which guy shows up.
Even against
Granados, he basically ran out the ring.
But I'll tell you what. You reminded me. I'm a movie quotes guy. You're giving me a movie quote here. And at his best days, you knew what you were getting with Fortuna. He was ex-world champion.
The best days, he was a nightmare.
Championship level. He was a tough fight, guaranteed tough fight. And even now, like you said, even at above his best weight against Robert Easter, he still was a nightmare. Jimmy, as you referenced,
it was tricky. Yeah.
But now at this age, he's sort of like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're gonna get. You get a guy who shows up to fight.
Yeah, he might show up. That's the thing. He can show up and win this fight. That's what's crazy.
Or he might show up and look for the first exit out of there, where the first decent punch that hits him, he's looking for a way out. At this point in his career, he's become that kind of guy. He's a bit of an enigma, and it's sort of like that box of chocolates.
And I think a lot of that falls on Davies. I think if he starts fast and starts early and lets this guy know, like, I'm for real, because we know Davies fights. I mean, we saw that last fight with Sergey Lipinets, which I think was his best performance of his career. Against the best opponent he's ever fought. He just fell short. He was outclassed. He got dropped a bunch of times. But man, he fought his butt off. And again, that's why he's back on our air. But that's how Davies fights, man. He brings it. That's the way he is.
That was your prototypical pro box fight.
Yeah, and that's a prototypical Davies fight as well. That's the way he fights. He brings it.
What I'm curious about, and I want to ask you about this, Chris, when people ask about finishing, I say finishing is an instinct, it's not a skill. You can teach some of it, but that key of knowing when to go in, when a guy's really hurt, some fighters have it, some fighters don't. In the Lipinets fight, Robert Davies Jr. had Lipinets hurt a couple times, tried to finish it. You saw it in the replay, and couldn't quite get him out of there. And then Lipinets would come back because he'd be out of gas. That mistiming those finishing moments, could that be an issue in this fight to you? Is it possible?
Yes, because you know who can finish? Fortuna. He hurts you. He knows how to get it done. Again, we're talking about another ex-world champion. Lipinets is an ex-world champion. He had great surviving skills. And even at this advanced age with Lipinets, chin wasn't great. He's getting rocked a lot. But he knew how to survive. He knew how to do damage. He can still punch. Even at this stage of his career. And Fortuna's another one, man. He always had a pretty good chin. It wasn't really the chin that ever failed him. But if he hurts you, you damn well know he can find a way to hurt you more. So that's where they kind of differ in terms of their experience. Like I said, Lipinets was the best fighter that Davies had ever fought, and this is another guy who's probably going to be the second best guy he's ever fought.
Well, I got to say, last time I'm going to see you guys before you get on a plane. Safe travels. Enjoy. You're going to stop in Ireland, right? Leaving Sunday. But I will be there next week. You will all be there November 1st to watch on ProBox TV. Download the ProBox TV app now. Never fall behind in your boxing news. And it's the best way to watch our ProBox TV fights. November 1st from Ireland. Do not miss it.
November 1st, ProBox TV makes its European debut in collaboration with Conlan Boxing. This stacked card starts with hometown fighter Padraig "The Hammer" McCrory returning to the ring to take on the hard-hitting Colombian LEONARD Carrillo. And in the co-main, the UK's Robbie Davies Jr. clashes with former two-weight world champ Javier Fortuna of the Dominican Republic. Live from the SSE Arena in Belfast, Northern Ireland.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.